Hello everyone and welcome to the latest edition of On The Whistle. Thanks for joining me. Apologies if I'm not at my absolute best. It's been a long day and I'm feeling very tired, but I thought why not have a late night chat about Sunderland. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, so let's get straight into it. Sunderland 0, QPR 0. I think it's a game that you probably from a Sunderland perspective have to break down into two quite distinct parts. The first hour before Joe Bellingham's red card, which I have to say I thought probably was a red card. No malice in the challenge whatsoever, but ultimately he was late, his studs were up. I think if that's an opposition player makes that challenge, I think he's screaming for a red. And I think Job's reaction summed it up really. I think he knew, and I think from a Sunderland perspective, no need for an overreaction or any drama. Job's been amazing. He plays a high intensity, combative midfield role. He's, been late in this challenge and hopefully something he'll just be learned from. I think from a Sunderland perspective, I think the first hour of the game was a little bit disappointing. I think, albeit they still had some pretty good chances, in the first half. Hume played a pass into Isidore that he blasted just wide of the far post. Dan Neil obviously hit the post for that brilliant effort from about 20 yards where he took the volley on first time. I thought QPR shaded it in the first hour. Not complete dominance. I didn't think Sunderland were poor. They certainly didn't dominate the game. But I thought that sometimes Sunderland played through QPR's press really, really nicely. A lot of time they kind of struggled. QPR put some really dangerous crosses into the box. I think if they had a more confident striker up front and a better finisher up front, I think they would have taken the lead, at some stage through that first phase. After the Joe Bellingham red card, I have to say that for half an hour, I think Sunderland's performance was, in the context of where they were in the game, pretty much flawless. There was a 5-minute period after the red where Sunderland understandably looked shaken and I thought QPR might score. The striker obviously had a big chance where he racked one just wide of the far post. Jimmy Dunn then had a close range header where he headed it thankfully straight at Simon Moore, but that was a really big opportunity and he probably should have done better. After that, I can only remember QPR having shots from distance. I never actually felt like Sunderland were in danger of conceding unless a 30-yard or a 25-yard effort flew in the top corner. I thought that Sunderland understood immediately that a point was going to be a good point. I think that they've dug in really, really well, defended their box well. Again, Chris Mepham, who maybe in the first half hadn't been at his absolute sharpest that we've seen him. I thought he was brilliant in the last 20-25 minutes, winning the first contact at corners, drawing fouls, slowing the game down. And I think it's full credit to Sunderland that, ultimately at the end of the day, they come out of a really, really difficult game, I think, with a very valuable point, another clean sheet. And I think it's one that ultimately, I think QPR will feel a bit aggrieved that they didn't win 3 points. I think you can see they're a team that they're missing key players in the final third. They're lacking a bit of confidence, but I kind of feel like because of the discipline Sunderland showed in the last half hour, they kind of deserved that point, because I think to limit a team to as little as they did with 10 men, I think was impressive. So the first question I've got in, let's get straight into your questions, is from Chris. He says, are you disappointed we didn't win, or is it a point gained? To be honest, I see it very, very much as a point game and a point gained. I know obviously the table, QPR are second bottom and they're struggling. I was so impressed with the job that Marty Cifuentes did last season. I expected QPR to be organised. I expected them to be strong on home turf. I thought they were good. I think sometimes it kind of shows just why the Championship is such a competitive division. I think you've got to show a lot of respect to the way they played. Like I said, I thought the pressing was good. They got in some dangerous areas. I thought they looked like a half-decent Championship team, albeit lacking quality in the final third. And I think that from a Sunderland perspective, yes, it was a bit disappointing that they weren't at their best for the first hour. But I think, again, we spoke about the whole game, about how the confidence and the unity you can take from, in that circumstance, grinding out a win. I think for Sunderland to sort of grind out a point in these circumstances is a big plus for me. I think that it's Sunderland have been so good at home all season so far. If away from home you can be resilient and you can be tough to break down and pick up points here and there, pick up wins here and there as they've done, then you're not going to be far off. So for me, I very much am taking the positives from it. I think it's a point gained. So the next question is Michael saying, will Rigg be available for Preston? Yeah, so it's we don't know exactly what the nature of the issue is with Chris Rigg, why he missed the game. Labrie said afterwards he didn't want to comment on it too much because his quote was, "I'm not a doctor." As far as we understand, that Rigg had an issue towards the end of the week in training. It's been checked out and basically he's fine in terms of there are no long-term issues. So Labrie said he was confident that Rigg would return to training next week. That's obviously really great news for the player first and foremost, but also for the team. So if you want my honest opinion, I would say personally, I think he's a major doubt for Preston. I think that there won't be a lot of training time between now and then. I don't think Sunderland will want to risk someone of his age if he's had a bit of an issue over the last week. I think they'll want to be cautious. Clearly, if he's fully fit and available, they'll pick him because with Job's red card, they certainly need him. But I think at this point, I would think it would be safe to assume that he's a big doubt for that Preston game. But obviously, we'll wait and see. Mike says, hi Mike. He says, Labrie has certainly built in some resilience, saw it at Luton in a different way here. QPR never had a sniff after the red. Completely agree with that, really impressive. Other than the first couple of minutes, like I said, when they had those chances, I didn't think they created much. There is depth which will be tested if Rigg is out for long with Job. Brings the Hendo return in January into full focus for me. Samed risk this week, ? Yeah, I just don't think Samed's going to be ready. As far as I'm aware, he's not even in full training. He certainly wasn't training with the team on Tuesday when they had an open training session. I don't expect someone to rush him back. The main reason why it's taken so long is because they've been a little cautious and they don't want to risk a recurrence because they feel that would potentially keep him out for quite a number of months. So I just don't see them risking Samed, even though albeit clearly it would be very useful. But yeah, just go to show, Mike, I think it's a good point in terms of the Henderson thing that, you know, what feels like a position of strength can turn very quickly. And we've seen that this week with all of a sudden with Job and Rigg. Now, Gaz, Clayton, Chris, all asking the big question I think that we've all got really is that if Rigg doesn't make it on Wednesday, which is a distinct possibility, how's Labrie going to do it? It's actually a really difficult one to guess, isn't it? Now, the obvious thing would be to say that you've got Aushish, who scored for the under-21s this morning. You've got Alexic, who Sunderland have paid a lot of money for. It's time to give them their go. But we know that Labrie has been ultra cautious with Alexic. He doesn't want to expose him too early. He feels like he's still getting grips with the language, with the game model, and he doesn't want to knock his confidence by putting him in too early. Given that he hasn't risked him even with minutes off the bench, say at home to Oxford, is he going to suddenly throw him in at the start and away at Preston? I find it quite hard to see that. I think it's unlikely. So for me, it's probably we're looking at a formation change, I think would be my guess. If Ballard's fit, do you go to a back three, play Mepham, Ballard or 9, and that obviously allows you to bring another forward in? Or, which I think is a possibility, do you go with a 4-4-2? Is it a chance to give Aaron Connolly his first start? You know, someone basically play with a 4-4-2 out of possession anyway. The only difference would be that you'd be asking either Isidore or Connolly basically to drop in and join in with those triangles in possession. But it's going to be really interesting because I think one of the biggest strengths of Labrie is he's been really, he's had real clarity with how he sets the team up. He's relied on a small core of players and they've obviously had really good understanding as a result. The downside is that when you pick up a few injuries, you're potentially bringing in players who are short of fitness and rhythm. So it's going to be a really interesting challenge. Obviously, fingers crossed, touch wood, that Chris Rigg's available for Wednesday. But if not, it's going to be a really interesting test of Labrie's sort of coaching ingenuity. So yeah, thanks for your questions. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Like I say, I think for me, not what we wanted from the game, not what we hoped Sunderland would produce, but ultimately, I think it's another point in the right direction. And I think full credit to the players and the staff. I think one thing you can say about the Sunderland team is this season is they're never giving up and they're fighting for every point. And yeah, it's another point on the board. Hopefully 3 more to come on Wednesday. Thanks for watching.